I'll never forget the day I realized the neighborhood we thought was safe, the one we poured our savings into because it looked picture perfect, wasn't safe at all. It started like any other Tuesday, quiet, predictable, the kind of day you don't even bother to remember. My daughter Emily was laughing outside, and if you're a parent you know that sound. It's the background music of your life, the signal that everything's okay. Then, just like somebody flipped a switch, the laughter stopped. Not faded, stopped. And in that silence, my heart sank. By the time I reached the driveway, my wife Rachel was already halfway down the street, her stride long and sharp. She doesn't rush, she arrives. Ex-army, come under fire. And what I saw down there froze me in place. Emily was on the ground, scraped knees, pink t-shirt dusted with gravel, and standing over her were 4 teenage boys in varsity jackets. At the front was Kyle Dawson, the HOA president's golden boy, gripping a metal bat like it was an extension of his arm. He wasn't warming up for baseball. He was holding it like a weapon. He slammed it into the gravel right by Emily's head, pebbles spraying her cheek. His buddies laughed like it was all just a game. My legs felt like they were made of cement, but Rachel never broke stride. She locked her eyes on Kyle, her voice flat, cold, a voice I'd only heard once when a car almost hit Emily. Step away from her. It wasn't a request, it was an order. And for the first time, those boys flinched. I got there just as Rachel told him, drop the bat. He hesitated, looked around for backup, but his friends were already backing off. He finally dropped it with a dull thud. Seconds later, a pristine white SUV rolled up, and out stepped the queen herself. Margaret Dawson, HOA president, Kyle's mother, hair perfect, smile sharp as a blade. She didn't look worried, not even surprised. Just annoyed, like we'd ruined her afternoon latte run. She looked right past Emily, still trembling, and purred. I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. Boys will be boys. Rachel's jaw clenched. Your boy stood over my daughter with a bat. Margaret's smile tightened. Or maybe your daughter tripped. She does look a little clumsy. And with that, she put a hand on Kyle's shoulder and pulled him toward the SUV. That was the moment I realized. She wasn't just protecting her son. She was rewriting reality right in front of us. The next morning, the school called us in. The principal sat there, sweating in his cheap tie, mumbling about conflicting accounts. And then, right on cue, Margaret swept in uninvited, waving typed witness statements from Kyle's buddies. All identical, all claiming Emily had tripped. She leaned on the principal, reminding him how her family had just donated a brand new scoreboard. It was theater, and she owned the stage. By the time she left, the case was dead. But it didn't stop there. 2 days later, a letter appeared in our mailbox. Violation. Our grass was a 1/4 inch too tall. $100 fine. The next day, another letter. The garden hose wasn't coiled properly. Then came one about a ceramic gnome Emily had painted in art class. $50 for unapproved ornamentation. It became a war of paper cuts. Every trip to the mailbox was like bracing for another slap. Rachel didn't yell. She didn't panic. She opened a folder on her laptop, labeled it HOA, and started documenting. Photos, measurements, timestamps. Always start with evidence, she muttered. I realized then, she wasn't just reacting. She was preparing for war. And Margaret escalated. One night, around midnight, 2 big guys in cheap jackets showed up on our porch. They didn't knock. One crouched by the flower pot, slipping something behind it. Rachel had already set up cameras. On the screen we watched him plant a bag of white powder, like some bad crime drama. Rachel hit a switch and blasted them with floodlights. Her voice boomed through the speaker, mechanical, cold. You are on private property. You are being recorded from multiple angles. State your purpose. The men panicked, scrambled back to their van, and peeled out. We had them on 3 different cameras. That was the turning point. Margaret wasn't just being petty, she was willing to frame us. And Rachel, instead of being scared, got energized. Our kitchen turned into a command center. She strung up cameras disguised as birdhouses, rigged a dash cam facing the Dawson house, even flew a drone at dawn, mapping the comings and goings of Margaret's hired compliance officers. Meanwhile, I logged the footage. Hours of boring suburban life, kids on bikes, mail trucks, but in between, we caught gold. Fake photos, staged violations, her brother-in-law's landscaping company billing thousands for 15 minutes of work. We had receipts, and they were damning. But we weren't alone. Slowly, we we pulled in allies. Bill, our retired Marine neighbor, had his own war stories about Margaret finding him for flying the wrong size flag. Claire, a teacher across the street, told us about parents whose kids were benched or overlooked after crossing Margaret at the PDA. It wasn't just us. She'd been running the neighborhood like a dictatorship for years. Then came the break we needed. Through a friend of a friend, we got screenshots from Kyle's private group chat. He bragged about pushing Emily with the bat, bragged that his mom owned the principal and was making that family's life hell. He spelled out the whole scheme, laughing about how easy it was. That was our smoking gun. But the real bombshell came from an unexpected place. George, the HOA treasurer. Quiet man, glasses, always looked trapped. His own son was in that group chat. We showed him the screenshots, his boy's name right there next to Kyle's bragging. George cracked. He handed us a flash drive with the real financial records. 5 years of embezzlement, fake contracts, kickbacks, personal vacations charged to the HOA. 6 figures stolen right under everyone's noses. 2 nights later, the annual HOA meeting was packed. Normally 10 people show up. That night it was standing room only. Margaret strutted at the podium in her white blazer, glowing like she was untouchable. She droned on about property values until Rachel stood up. Calm, steady, she plugged in the laptop. The first slide lit the screen, Emily's scraped face. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the fake fines, the nighttime footage of the goons, Kyle's bragging texts, and finally the graphs, line after line of stolen money. Margaret slammed the gavel, screeching, "This is slander. This meeting is over." But before she could storm out, the back doors opened. 2 detectives and 3 state troopers walked in. One of them spoke in a voice that carried across the room. "Margaret Dawson, we have a warrant for your arrest. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. And to Kyle, we've got one for you too, assault." The room went dead silent except for the click of handcuffs. For the first time, Margaret's smile cracked. She looked at me, and I swear I saw fear, real fear, in her eyes. The kind she'd spent years putting into everyone else. In the days that followed, neighbors we barely knew came by to thank us, to share their own horror stories. The HOA was rebuilt from scratch, with Bill reluctantly taking the helm. The petty fines stopped. People started talking again on the sidewalks. And Emily's laughter, it came back. Now, every time I mow the lawn, I keep it exactly at 2.9 inches. Not because Margaret's rule book says so, but because it reminds me. We fought, we won, and we took our home back. But here's the thing I keep wondering. What if we hadn't fought? What if we just paid the fines and kept our heads down like everyone else? How many more families would she have crushed? How many kids would have been told their pain was just a misunderstanding? So I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have gone head-to-head with someone like Margaret, knowing she owned the school, the HOA, the whole system? Or would you have cut your losses and walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this isn't just a story about my neighborhood. It's about how far we go to protect the people we love, and whether justice is worth the fight when the whole deck is stacked against you.